Yay! Football season is finally here. I am Kelly Stewart with the college football edition of Bet On It. Let's bring in Marco D'Angelo and Joe Raineri. Welcome in, gentlemen. And I'm not going to say the show's going to be rapid fire, but we're going to try to keep it under 30 minutes for your viewing pleasure because we know you guys have the attention span of 15-year-olds. Marco D'Angelo, big game breakdown. We're getting right into this bad boy. North Carolina versus South Carolina. South Carolina currently a 2.5-point underdog on the Wager Talk odds screen. Now, this is a neutral site game, as is the next one. Let's get into it.
Well, Kelly, you look at these two teams in North Carolina, South Carolina. All the talk has been about North Carolina. They're a top 25 team ranked coming in here, but the big news with them, or hype, I should say, is quarterback Drake May. Everybody's talking about him and expecting him to put up big numbers, and that's usually the case with North Carolina. Never been a problem with the offense in recent years. The problem has been the other side of the football, and that is the defense. And I think South Carolina can get the job done in this one. They've got a quarterback of their own, Spencer Rattler, who had a very good second half of the season last year, and another year under his belt under this regime. I expect him to have a good outing here against this very suspect North Carolina defense. Both teams should be able to go up and down the field, but I think South Carolina will be able to make one or two more stops. And then if you want to go and throw in an intangible in this game, whenever you have a special teams like South Carolina that you always got to be concerned with, it also helps the special teams even if they don't run a fake, because the receiving team, North Carolina, has got to be aware of it and stay at the line of scrimmage for an extra count of two before you drop back for run blocking on the return. So it helps change the field a little bit with the special teams, whether you're running a fake or you're not. I'm going to go ahead and say all around, I like South Carolina in this one to pull them out upset. And the last thing, something smells a little fishy. You've got a ranked team versus an unranked team, even though it's on a neutral site. Line's only 2.5. Doesn't that look a little fishy? I'll go ahead and take the Gamecocks on Saturday.
Joe, I'm with Marco. This one does look a little fishy, but what also looks a little fishy is this total on the Wager Talk odds screen. Opened up at 60 over the summer. Now 64.5 and 65s are starting to pop up. Your thoughts on the total?
I agree. I agree with the movement up. I mean, listen, North Carolina's biggest issue has been defense. It has been for the better part of 6 years now. Offensively, Sam Howell, now Drake May, they have always been able to put up points. The biggest issue with North Carolina has been able to stop anybody. So what do? They bring in Gene Chizik to kind of right the ship here a little bit. And he did a pretty good job, certainly, of recruiting and in the transfer portal. But more importantly with North Carolina, I think they did a really, really good job here bringing back the right kinds of people. Cedric Gray would have been in the NFL this year had he not decided to pass on the draft and come back and play. And his answer to Gene Chizik as to why he did that was simply, I've got unfinished business here at North Carolina. So you've got some leadership on the defensive side of the ball that I think is going to be better. I understand the pushing up of the total. But here's an interesting part in the first week to 2 weeks of the season, right? Week 0 and week 1 in the college football season. It's a trend that's been going on now over the last decade that has been pretty spot on. And it's when we've got these small favorites early on in the season here, Cal, that are under a touchdown favorite at a neutral site against other Power 5 schools, especially big name schools, right? You've got South Carolina, you've got North Carolina. Obviously, it's a rivalry of sorts there in that part of the country. But the reality is we're looking at 13-3 straight up, 12-4 against the number for the favorites in this spot. I mean, the reality is, listen, the odds makers are pretty good at what they do. They're labeling them a 2.5-point favorite. Why? Because there's not a lot separating them, but the favorites have been the ones cashing the tickets over the last decade in this role, in this spot. Neutral site, I'm not going against it. I like North Carolina to get it done. I'll lay the 2.5.
Hey, another one that fits that Same trend, LSU versus Florida State in Orlando. This one opened up 2 over the summer. Total 55.5, now 2.5, 56 pretty much. Some 56.5s on the Wager Talk odds screen. Joe, I feel like this is like one of those games where every sharp guy likes FSU. And I don't understand. I mean, Mike Norvell is still the head coach of that football program.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you there. I mean, I wanted to pick a side here, but then I decided that the total was probably a better way to go. And I'm starting to see it creep up here a little bit. 55.5 is what's been available. I'm starting to see some 56s and 56.5s starting to pop up. And I agree. I mean, look at the two quarterbacks that you've got on this side of the field, right? On LSU and Florida State. You got, Jaden Daniels now with another year under his belt with Brian Kelly. And of course, Florida State there, they've got their own Heisman hopeful under center. And I think now that they've had a year here and they have familiarity, it's going to be in Orlando, so it is going to be a bit of a neutral site, so to speak. But I do think the reality is when you put it all together, I think the defenses will be better as the year goes on. But I am giving the thumbs up to the offenses here. I think this is going to be a wild one. I think it's one in which the defenses are going to be trying to keep up with the offenses, which is why I went with the total here, Cal. I think we're going to get points. I think this is going to be a all-out shootout. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I got no problem with taking the over in this one.
Marco, a little revenge here for LSU after last year getting, well, I'd call it surprised. I think a lot of people were surprised that FSU was able to go into New Orleans and put a trouncing on this team. Your thoughts on this matchup?
Kelly, not exactly a trouncing. It was 24-10 at one point in that game. Florida State with the lead, but LSU came roaring back, and if it wasn't for a blocked PAT at the end of the game, you would have been looking at overtime. They end up losing 24-23. But a couple things about that game. That was a tough spot for LSU. Brian Kelly took the job, bolted from Notre Dame to go to LSU. That was the first game of the season. First game under his regime. You got to learn a new offense, and everybody get used to that. So that was usually you would schedule a cupcake for your first game. That was a pretty tall order, but they got it right in the second half. And I think now heading into this year, they're going to be better prepared, better continuity on offense, and both offenses are loaded in this game. Defensively, I would expect a little more out of LSU, but we got one asterisk with LSU, and it's the one thing that is tempering my play on this one. I do lean to LSU to get their revenge in this one, but they're going to be without their defensive standout, Mason Smith, who has to serve a one-game suspension. This is going to hurt them somewhat in this one, but I still think they can overcome it. You're looking at a line 2.5. Basically, we're looking at picking the winner. And unlike the first game that we covered, when I said something smells a little bit fishy when you had ranked versus unranked and the line was 2.5, here you got two top 10 teams playing one another, and it's that same 2.5, and it is a neutral, but they're playing in Orlando. If it favors anybody, it's going to favor Florida State, I should say. So I don't have a problem laying the 2.5 in this one with LSU to get their revenge. And I don't know if you could actually, call it, revenge and an upset since they're the slight favorite.
All right. We've got a couple of big games broken down now, and you know what that means. It's time for some TNA with Ralph Michaels. All right, there he is. I'm back with a pin from Las Vegas. Ralph walked up and says, "Do not write with this. This is for bet on it only." I said, "Okay, Ralph." At Cal Sports LV, it is week 1 college football. And while we don't have any wow numbers for this week's TNA, Ralph sure wowed me with his third bullet point. It might not be good for a game I just gave out on Wager Talk today. Ralph, let's talk about game 1 situations.
Well, Kelly, I'm going to go and bring a chart. For those that follow on Wager Talk today, you guys know I have a chart every week. And I like the chart visually because it's showing you all 4 years and the 4-year total, all 4 years and the 4-year total for away favorites. And I do want to preface this. I did not include the 2020 season for a reason. Why? It was the COVID year. Some people were playing game one of the season in October, so you did not have the legitimate prepping for the season game one data. But the chart is simple, and it pretty much shows you the entire scenario. College football game number one, home favorites on the top with the blue heading. The last 4 seasons, excluding 2020, 61%, 50%, 53%, 53.6%. So a 4-year total of 54.3%. I'm not telling you to go bet every home favorites, but you certainly need to be aware of situations like this. The better team is prepped, not having to travel, not playing their first game in front of a hostile crowd, may not have their singling down. As an away favorite, take a look at the bottom. 47%, 25%, 50%, and 46% for a 44.8% record for away favorites. And on the very bottom in the black, just simply looking at over-unders at game one, 55.2% of every game since 2018, excluding the COVID year, has gone under the total. And Kelly, I want to point out, remember, with the new rule changes, the clocks do not stop in first downs. This year, again, week 0, an isolated week, Navy and UTEP played fewer plays, but there were about 4.5 fewer plays per game per team with that rule change. I'll give you guys an update next week after we have a full week of data.
I love it. I got a little nerd chart right out of the gate. Thank you, Ralph. But before we get to our next bullet point, Ralph, could you please kindly let everybody know what you have up at Wager Talk?
You know, I want to thank everyone, every Bet On It viewer for following me the last couple years, for all your kind comments. I've done some incredible free guides at Wager Talk. Please check those out. But I want to give you the opportunity. I'm pulling one of those coupon codes out of the guide. It's CFB Guide 200. CFB Guide 200 gets you $200 off my NFL and college football combo. $699 gets you both sports for the entire year. My way of saying thank you for paying attention to the TNA segment, and thank you for being a Bet On It follower.
A lot of talk is made of teams with a game under their belt. There was 14 teams that played week 0. How does that work out for them in week 1?
You know, Kelly, you and I did a video on the biggest NFL betting myths. I bet this one fits into the mold. I'm going to use the scenario. You walk into a bar and 10 guys are drinking beer and say, hey, one team is playing their second game, the other team is playing the first game. I'm going to bet you at least 8, maybe 9 out of those 10 people and say, that's a huge advantage for the team that has experience, already played a game, and now playing their second game. Not so fast. Since 2008, Kelly, 2008, we have over 350 games of data. The team that is playing their second game against the team playing the season opener is 45.5% against the spread. An amazing number. I also have 2 subsets. If that team playing its second game played their first game at home, and now they're playing an FBS foe, so you don't have a weakling, you have a legitimate game, that applies to La Tech, SMU, USC, La Tech versus SMU, and USC versus Nevada. It applies to 2 games. Those teams playing their second game, played their first game at home, and now playing an FBS foe, they have gone 33% against the spread and 41.4% over-under. So that fades La Tech, and that says to fade USC. And one last situation, if the team's playing their second game, they played the first game at home, and now they're on the road, like La Tech, those teams have gone 28.6% against the spread. So not a huge sample size on the La Tech guys. It's only 6 and 15 in the last 13 years. But game 2 against game 1, 45.5%. If the team was previously at home and now playing an FBS foe, 33.3%. And if the team was previously at home and now on the road like La Tech, 28.6% against the spread. You can win a lot of beers at the bar if you put up those numbers and ask people to guess the right answer.
That is actually very surprising, Ralph. And another one that you're going to drop some truth bombs on me here. And as I mentioned, I gave it out on Wager Talk earlier today, in kind of a look-ahead spot with a team that I'm very high on. Tell me how AP top 15 teams do in this situation.
This surprised me as well, Kelly. You know, I did cherry pick this data. I looked at all AP teams. I looked at top 20 teams. And when I got to the top 15 teams, it started to make a difference. So this is simply as simple as a system can get. If you are playing your first game of the season and on deck you have an opponent that is currently ranked in the AP top 15, this goes back to 1998 and over 250 games of data. Those teams have covered 58.4% of the spread. And one subset, if that team has an AP top 15 on deck and is a home favorite, like Texas, like Alabama, and like Baylor, they have gone 75, 47, and 7, 62.5% against the spread. So if you said, hey, people, Bama's playing Middle Tennessee, they're laying 39 points, they got Texas on deck, you think they're looking ahead? The answer is, data has shown us not, as they've covered 62.5%.
Oh boy, Ralph Michaels coming in hot week one with some great data points. Thinking of Ralph, make sure you're following him at CalSportsLV on Twitter. Also, as he mentioned, his Wager Talk homepage is full of free guides for college football as well as NFL. It's time for my favorite segment. You know what that is, those barking dogs. And Marco, I'm going to go to you first. This was kind of slim pickings. I mean, we've got some giant spreads this week. I'm always looking for that dog around the touchdown range, under 2 touchdowns that can pull the upset. And you've got one just under a touchdown that I just so happen to agree with.
Yeah, yes, I do, Kelly. And good thing we have Slack and time stamps and that I got it in before you did. So sorry I snatched this one from you, but I'm glad that we're seeing the same way. And that's South Alabama plus the 6.5. South Alabama brings back 9 starters on both offense and defense. Not only are they bringing back all the key people, but they're also pretty deep after that. This is a team that has 16 players on the roster, scholarship players that are actually in their 6th year, the 6-year seniors that we've had because of COVID and so forth. This is the 3rd year under Coach Womack, and we always say it. Year 3 is the big year for coaches to make the difference because you finally got all of your pieces of the puzzle. Your recruits are in there. You've had 2 years of learning your system. And based on what South Alabama did last year in year 2, there's a lot of excitement heading into year 3. They made a bowl game for the first time in a while last year. Now, that bowl game didn't turn out so well. They got steamrolled by Western Kentucky. But just for the experience, and as we always talk about, teams that go to bowl games get extra practices in the month of December, which always helps that team the following year. So that's something that South Alabama hasn't got to experience, and that's going to be a plus heading into this year. Now, on the flip side of the coin, why are they such a live dog? Well, they're getting points from a Tulane team that had just a magical season last year. Unfortunately for Tulane, they lost a lot of players. They lost 9 people to the NFL. Now, if you're in Alabama, a Clemson, teams like that, Georgia, Ohio State, you just reload that talent all the time. You don't reload that easily at Tulane. So I think in a lot of key positions, they're going to miss those players that have departed. They do bring back quarterback Michael Pratt from last year, but this is a spot that they don't bring back their key running back. And he was instrumental in making that offense move. When that running game was clicking last year, it helped open up that passing game. I think they're going to struggle a little bit early on, getting all the pieces to fit this year. I'll take an experienced live dog, and I'm going to go for South Alabama plus the 6.5. Kelly, I'm calling it 24-23 with the old outright. Put a little sprinkle as well.
Love that, Marco. I'm going to need that barking dog as well. And a dog that I didn't consider, but I did see that a sharp group bet it, Joe Raineri. This one's kind of like you're just laying it all out there early this year. Nice double-digit underdog, calling for an outright winner.
Go big or go home, Cal. It's going to be the motto this season here on Bet On It. And I like a lot of these dogs, in fact, early on in the season, especially in this spot where we have one of these group of 5 teams at home as a big underdog like we have with Colorado State taking on the Pac-12 there in Washington. Well, what's left of the Pac-12 anyway in Washington State right now. And what we have seen here, Cal, over the last decade is another amazing number. We've seen at home these the group of the other 5, right? We've seen these teams that are not supposed to be as good as the big brother they're playing. But guess what? 64% of the time, they end up covering. So I think being at home early this time of year with some of these schools like Colorado State is going to be huge, especially when you give them the fact that you got Jay Norvell comes in, right, gets out of Nevada. He comes here last year. It's an absolute train wreck. But he brings back his quarterback along with 14 other starters here from a year ago, including the entire defensive secondary with a year under their belt now. They got some great transfers in there. I mean, listen, Colorado State, I love their win total over this year. I think they are a sleeper and are going to be an opportunity to be able to bet in a lot of spots this year out of the Mountain West. But I love them getting double digits here because, listen, Washington State, they too are going through a little transformation. I love Cam Ward, the quarterback there, but he's got a new OC, and that new OC is coming from Western Kentucky, where guess what they did? They threw the ball every down and a lot. That is not what Cam Ward does well. They returned none of the top receivers from a year ago in Washington State. I think it's the perfect storm here, no pun intended, and I like getting that 11.5 with Colorado State. And you better sprinkle a little something on that money line because I think they're a live dog this weekend here, Cal.
Live dogs. Those are my favorite ones. Let's see if Colorado State can't spring that double-digit upset at home and South Alabama cannot rectify K-State woes from last football season against Tulane. We're going to pivot here and do a little segment called Fade Joe. Joe, why are we fading you this week?
Oh, well, you're gonna understand in a minute as soon as I tell you who the week is here. You know, we did this last year, Cal. We love fading Joe Public, and we've got right off the bat another situation here, and I am more than happy to fade. Yeah, the University of Miami, who is going to start the year off at home here, Cal. And guess what? They're going to welcome in the other Miami, the Ohio version coming to town. And one Mr. Gabbert, who was already talking smack, by the way. You think I know what kind of team Miami is going to have this year? I have absolutely no idea. I do know, though, however, every year, and we all know this here on the show, that they never live up to expectations. They always underperform when they should be running teams over. Middle Tennessee State, I still have nightmares about that from a year ago. But the reality is here, early on in the season, it's another thing that I like to do, Cal. Look who Miami is playing next week, okay? It's a rematch against Texas A&M that absolutely mauled them on national TV last year, if you recall, when Jimbo was having all sorts of problems, couldn't throw the ball, couldn't figure out who his quarterback was, and then Miami was going to come in. It was the perfect spot for them to announce they're back, and what did they do? They got boat raced. So that's what's coming up next week. Now they're taking on a MAC team with a very experienced quarterback. They are going to be very good and contend for the MAC title here. And you want me to lay 16, 17 points with Miami? Hell no, am I not doing that. I can absolutely see them taking the foot off the gas in the second half. I can see Miami of Ohio being somewhat competitive in this one. And also, by the way, Tyler Van Dyke, it's been reported down here, Cal, that he's got an issue, a thumb issue, something going on with his hand here that he got over the last couple of weeks So I don't see them, if it does become a blowout, I don't see them pushing him in the second half. The backup has got some experience, but he's no passer. I can see a lot of running. Any which way you cut it, no way am I going to look at the University of Miami right off the bat, knowing A&M is on deck, and lay 16 points. So you can have them all you want, public. I'm going with Miami, Ohio, and Mr. Gabbert.
Yeah, we got to love Miami, the Texas of Florida. Marco D'Angelo, Joe Raineri kind of stole your thunder there with some look-ahead spots. This segment's called Sandwich or Trap. Do we have an open-face sandwich? Do we have a trap game? What's going on for week one?
Well, Kelly, week one's always tough to get those scenarios. Obviously, there's no sandwich game because we only had a handful of teams play in week 0 and come back and play in week one. But I'm going to give you one that was there, but I'm not going to officially get to the window on it, but I'll explain the situation. And that was Rice at Texas. Reason for that, just like Joe said, you got a big game on deck. Can't have a bigger game for Texas than that Alabama game on deck with them. You know they're looking ahead to Alabama. The problem with this one is they are playing Rice, and Rice is not very good. Let's be honest about it. That's why we're looking at a point spread as high as we are here. But it is also one of those I like to call little brother, big brother type games where you know Rice is going to come to play anytime they get a chance to play the big brother of the state. We all know who the boss in the state of Texas is, and that's the Longhorns. But the problem is, last time they faced them, I think they lost 55-0 or 58-0, something like that. They could get boat raced here. But if you're Texas, you're going to do it. If you do win big, you're going to do it doing it with a very vanilla offense. You're not going to show anything this week. Why would you want to show anything for Alabama to get on film and prepare for? They're going to run vanilla offense, and that will be enough for them to get the win. But would it be enough to get the cover? If you put the gun to my head, the trap game this week would have been take Rice plus the points. I just don't have enough confidence to get to the window for an actual play. So, guys, as we move forward, you will get plenty of sandwich games and trap games along the way. We take these segments very seriously, and you'll have one next week. Official.
I can just see it now. Marco is just going to get trounced in the comment section on the YouTube channel. Boy, oh boy, you guys. I also don't know if I have the guts to take Rice. It's now your favorite time of the show, and that's because we crush our best bets, starting with week one. And while Marco took South Alabama in the Barking Dog segment, I like North Texas catching over a touchdown at home just as much. New head coach, new conference, no problem. I think Seth Luttrell did a solid job. I understand why they had to let him go, but Eric Morris gets to inherit this. The Mean Green have a rock-solid offensive line and rushing attack. I expect them to take almost full advantage of a conference-less Cal team who gave up 35.2 points per game last season. The Bears also just 2-9 in one-score games over the past few years. Yet another advantage for North Texas. And while they aren't known for their defense, I do believe they can get to Sam Jackson the fifth. They're going to put some pressure on him, and he's going to make some mistakes. Don't forget, sprinkle on that North Texas money line because they win this game at home. Marco D'Angelo, you have a little promo for us before you give us your best bet.
I do, Kelly, and kick off the season. We got a special offer for Bet On It viewers. We're off to a great start. I've been very selective in the month of August thus far. 6-0 on the football season, 5-0 in the NFL preseason, 1-0 last week in week 0 for college football. We're offering the entire football season for just $777. Regular price is $899. If you use coupon code FB777, you'll get the full season, both college and pro, right through the Super Bowl for just $777. Guys, that's less than $35 per week. That's what we charge for a 5% play, $35 by itself. You'll get everything all season long if you sign up on this package. And guys, my 5% plays in the NFL, the last 3 seasons were number one at Wager Talk with a 24-11 record on 5% NFL plays for a profit of over $5,100. Check it out. This deal expires midnight Labor Day. Check it out. Coupon code FB777. All right, guys, let's get to that best bet. In my best bet today, we're going to take a look at Boise State at Washington. Now, when you look at this one, quick glance, knee-jerk reaction, you see Boise State get double digits from a Pac-12 school. You're going to want to run to the windows and bet Boise State. But this ain't the Boise State of old. The last few years, they have not been their dominant self, and I don't trust them in this one. The narrative for this one's going to be that Boise State had one of the top passing defenses last year. That's going to take away the strength of Washington. Well, let me point out what conference they play in some of those out-of-conference games that Boise State played last year. Yeah, they had a good rushing defense or a good passing defense because they played a lot of teams that ran the football a lot. In the Mountain West last year, well, it wasn't very good. Let's be honest about it. Washington, they're loaded this year. They're bringing back all their key people on offense, especially quarterback Michael Penix Jr. He had a big year last year, passing for over 4,300 yards, 29 TDs, and he brings back his favorite receiver who snatched 75 passes last year, 7 TDs for 1,100 yards. I like this Washington offense. And you know what? Boise State can run the football, but Washington was good against the run last year as well. And that power running game of Boise State that everybody says will shorten the game and keep them in it, well, if they fall behind after a couple quick scores from Washington, you know where you can stick that running game trying to come from behind. I'm going to go ahead and lay the number. Currently, it is 14.5. Guys, hold off till Saturday till you play this. Because if it goes to 15, that's no big deal. But if it does go down to 14, that is a big deal. So hang out, wait till the weekend to bet this one. It can only benefit us. Take Washington minus the points. That's my best bet for week 1 college football.
All right. And last but not least, Joe Raineri, I need your best bet for college football week 1.
Well, we got some news coming out of Beavertown. So if you haven't heard, their former Clemson quarterback, what was it, DJ Ukulele? I'm not even going to try to pronounce it. Why? Because he wasn't worth remembering. That's why, which is why he's now a Beaver at Oregon State. But the problem is they got to take on a team we just saw in the Spartans there, San Jose State. And while, yes, they did get beat up here a little bit by USC, they were able to score, and they were able to score pretty well against what is a much better defense than what they are going to see here against Oregon State, who really only has, I believe they lost 6 of their starters from a year ago, guys that had been there, upperclassmen too as well, no longer there. That defense is going to take a step back, and I think being at home and being nearly, over a 3-score underdog, we're looking at about 16, 17 points right now. If you guys watch any of that USC game last week, then you realize San Jose State is going to be in a lot more games than maybe the market is going to give them credit for. And while, yes, they do have one game under their belt and, advantage to Oregon State now that they've got some film on them, and all, I'm not buying it, though. This is a very experienced San Jose State team. They got a lot of returning guys on this squad coming off of, I think, what is only a motivational push in that loss against USC. They are going to stay within this number as Mr. DJ over there, former Clemson quarterback. It's going to take them a little while, if ever, like it did at Clemson, to try to figure out how to actually play quarterback and have an offense here. I don't think it happens here. I think San Jose State may not win, but I think they're going to keep this thing and give the Beavers all they can handle. Give me the points in San Jose State this weekend.
All right, and there you have it. It is our first week of college football under wraps. We appreciate all of you guys hanging out with Joe, Marco, Ralph, and myself here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Please make sure you guys like and subscribe. Jump in the comment section. Tell us you love us. Tell us you hate us. I'm not reading it regardless. Don't forget, Marco reads everything, so do not be mean to him. Good luck, and until next week, let's bet on it.